Hello, everyone. Um, Again, my name is Paul Waters, and we're coming to you from the International Institute of Live Events. And today we have a young lady who I met at an institute by the name of Backstage Academy, now Live Event Technology. I think it's now renamed. And Maisie was a graduate from about nine years ago, Maisie Wood, and I was her course leader and also associate dean. But the purpose of today's podcast, as with all the similar podcasts we've done, is for our audience. And they are primarily students or recent graduates and are looking to understand how to navigate themselves through the industry and understand the challenges and opportunities that can potentially come their way, and how to know at what point to grab onto them and also take them on for further development and self-development. So I'm going to hand you over to Maisie now to give you a short introduction about herself before we commence the podcast.
Thank you. So my name's Maisie Wood, and I am currently the Senior Event Manager at York Barbican, which is run and owned by Legends Global.
Okay, thank you, Maisie. Now, as an academic and also a professional in the event industry, although I do less work in industry now, but also consultancy, I'm always pleased to see and watch the development of people that I had a small hand in teaching. And I know it's a very small hand because you had so many other academics on the course that you took at what was Backstage Academy, and to what the organization is now and how that has propelled your career. Now, it may be difficult for you to remember all the things that you did while you were a student, because it's probably, like you said, 9 years ago now. And but hopefully you can remember some poignant parts of that journey of 3 years and how it has or hasn't influenced your trajectory. So with a lot of people who join this industry, they have a reason why. So my first question to you really, I suppose, is what initially drew you to the events industry?
I'd never really thought about it until I was at the point of applying for universities. I went to college thinking that I wanted to be a midwife, and I did like science, and as part of my A levels that I did, and then on side of that I did art because I always enjoyed doing art, and then I did theatre studies. And the only reason I did theatre studies is because I'd done dance and things like that throughout my time at like high school, and I just really enjoyed like the runnings of things and like being a part of a show and putting on the performance and things like that. So I basically needed to fill my last subject at college, and I just thought it looks like fun and something to do. And I spoke to some of the students when I was there, and they sort of like encouraged me to take it on, so I did. So when I was at the point of applying for universities, I didn't get like the science grades that I needed to apply for midwifery. So I applied, and then I didn't get in, or I would have had to go for a foundation course. But at that point, I was doubting what I wanted to do, and I remember talking to my mum about it, and she was like, "Well, what do you enjoy doing?" She's always encouraged me to do just what do you enjoy, try do something that you find fun. And I said I'd enjoyed doing theatre studies. When I did it, I did like the backstage stuff. I did it in the tech side of things. At the time, wasn't very technical, but I did that. And so she went off and she found Backstage Academy online, and we got in touch and set up a meeting with them to like talk through the course. And it just sounded exciting and different, and I just thought, why not? And luckily I got it accepted on through like clearance, when you get like that last, when you've not got your options, you get your last chance sort of thing.
Yeah.
I applied through that, and I thought, let's just give it a go. So yeah.
Right. So I suppose it is there is no, let's say, specific way which most people arrive in the event industry. Some people have a clear idea where they want to be. Some people fall into it. Some people choose a course that's related to it, and some people may migrate from other courses and come into it that way. So the people that you meet in the industry tend to come from all different areas. But once you've met them, you find that to some degree, a large proportion of them have a real passion for it because it needs that. So I know where you are now in terms of York Barbican, but while you were on the course and your career progression from the course, those early days, once you left Backstage, did you have an idea once you finished on the live event? Was the live event technology? Live events technology.
Live events production was
Production.
the name. Yeah.
Yes. So when you finished that, when you walked out there with your hat and gown and your certificate, were you clear about where you wanted to go, or were you just looking around to see what was available? And did the institute help you in that journey?
I didn't have a clear direction of where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. I think I was because whilst I was at university, more so at the end of the first year and then through to the end, I freelanced during that time because the university set us up with work experience or paid work. And I took every opportunity that I could, whether it was paid or not, because I thought I'm meeting people. And more often than not, when I worked with somebody, then they brought me back again to do more work with them, and that continued. So at leaving uni, I thought, am I going to be strong enough to freelance and just maybe work at some festivals and just get whatever jobs I can, whether that was in an office, whether it was doing accreditation, more on the admin side because I wasn't strong in the technical side and still am not. It's not my strengths. So yeah, I took some time out and went traveling with my friend for a little bit, sort of did it while she can sort of thing. And then I was freelancing a little bit at the start of the spring into the summer, but I knew I wasn't I didn't feel secure in freelancing. I didn't feel safe in the fact that, the regular income that you could get, it can pay really well. And if you get the work, then that's amazing. I just preferred to have the security of a full-time job. So I had started speaking to a couple of people, and then it was an old lecturer. I think she was a lecturer, but she was part of the admin team. They'd called Sarah Gladwell. She had done a few freelance works jobs with her, and she put me in touch with someone who she knew was looking for a production assistant, full-time down in London. So I applied and got that job. So that was my first full-time role. But I didn't start that until August, the year after I graduated. So I spent a year. I didn't have any financial responsibilities, luckily, so I was free to figure out where I wanted to be. I know not everyone has that luxury. But I was glad then when I settled into the full-time role and had that security there.
Right. Okay. So one of the things we always talk about is, and I know, like you said, it's been 9 years, and 9 years, a lot has happened in your life, and all positive, I would hope, in terms of the industry, but challenging nonetheless, I would imagine, and we'll get to that later on. But do you think the time spent at university shaped your approach to the event industry, if you can reflect back? Because I know you said you did live event production, and for those of you who don't know what the course is, it covers all forms of backstage production: lighting, sound, visualization, and pyrotechnics. What was it? Any other areas that I missed?
I think it was just the key sort of production elements, and then you went into safety side and understanding. I think it was more in the third year where we went when you were involved, where we went more on the event management elements of planning an event and how things all come together. So I mean, I didn't really resonate with the technical production side of things. That's not where my brain is. But then, yeah, when we went into, I think it was end of the second year and in the third year when it was on about skills, about pulling the event together and all the elements of that. I think that showed me probably where my passion was and where my knowledge was, because I sort of felt in the first couple of years when it was all the tech stuff and about lighting and PA, I was like, I don't know what this is. And I saw everyone else going from strength to strength, and I was just like, where am I fitting into this? So having that time where we went into more of the admin side of stuff, but the actual complete planning of event, that's where I felt like the course really helped me.
Okay, that's good to hear. So you left the course, you've done a bit of traveling, like most students tend to do, which is good. Experience some parts of the world and a degree of maturity, and you come back into freelancing and you're looking for something more solid. Was there one pivotal moment or decision that you think might have really accelerated your career once you came back from traveling and you was doing a bit of freelancing or post-freelancing?
Um, I think it wasn't when I was freelancing. I think it was the job that I had as a production assistant down in London, I worked there for a year, and I enjoyed it and I learned a lot about the industry and different sides of it that come into play, like looking at it from like an artist perspective. Um, but unfortunately, I didn't stay within that job. And then it was when I was looking for work, just anywhere I could. A job came back up in Leeds at a venue called well, it's at Leeds University Union. The student union there, they have like music venue within the building.
Mhm.
I think it's when I settled into that, that's when I felt like I found more of my niche, where I felt comfortable like within a venue space and running it and running all the elements of it. That's when I feel like that's set me on the trajectory that I'm on now, more so than things previously.
Right. So running a live music venue, because I'm sure they would have had live bands coming in as well as DJs and various other social events. So was your responsibility to be the overall manager of that facility, or were you working alongside someone else or under someone else?
So in the student union, it works a little bit differently to what a classic venue would work, because the music venue isn't the only part of the building. So there were people above me in different areas. I was a live music coordinator for on the commercial side, and then above me was an event manager who oversaw the commercial side and the student side of things, because they sort of ran alongside each other. But because I was a live music coordinator, I basically that the venue was called Stylus, and then we did stuff in the refectory as well, which was owned by the uni. Um, I was involved. Well, I was in charge of running it from start to finish, since that I managed the diary, I took in the bookings, and then I advanced all the shows. And obviously, when you figure out who's bringing what and what you've got and finding that right balance, running the events on the night, being in charge of the ticketing and being like an artist liaison for the promoter and the artists when they come in, so they know we're on the building. And yeah, just being there and make sure it runs and doing all the admin around it. That was a very, very basic overview of what I did there, but it showed me all the elements of a venue and how something's run. Because sometimes when you go into a larger venue, you're in one area, you don't see everything else, you don't see how things intertwined into each other and how they rely on each other and work together. Or you don't understand it as well as you could if you didn't do it yourself at some point. So I think it was a really good starting point for me in venues to see the whole picture.
Yeah, I mean, and I've got to say, and I've got to commend you on this. Recently out of university and taken on a role within a live music venue, even though I know people might say, well, it's a student union venue, but it's no different in a sense, because
So
all the
it's
elements that you would have in any other venue is present within a small venue like a student venue. So what was the capacity of that venue that you had?
so it's up to 1,000 standing. It was just a
Mhm,
standing venue.
mhm,
So it was big, and they had a lot of bands. It was a very it's a busy venue. It's well known
mhm,
in Leeds, across promoters. So you'd get all the big promoters in there, so like Live Nation, SJM, Kilimanjaro, all the big promoters who put stuff in the arenas and things like that. They were putting stuff in our venues, and it was great because it was the right balance between having some more like upcoming artists,
yeah,
and then obviously having people when they're just at the point where they're about to
take off.
outgrow. Well, yeah, take
And I
off and
think
outgrow the 1,000 cap.
exactly, and I think a lot of people have to realize, because most people tend to buy tickets for live music events when they're in the stadium, they don't see the trajectory that these artists have taken before they get there. So nearly all artists, not all obviously, but nearly all artists start in small venues such as the one that you mentioned, Stylus, and they grow their sort of audience base, they hone their skills, and the promoter and the record companies will look at whether they should go to another venue of a bigger size, and so on and so forth. And the tour continues and tour continues till when most people ends up buying a ticket when they're in a major stadium like Wembley Stadium or a football
Yeah.
stadium, and they see a really polished performance. Not saying that the performance they had in the small ones were
Yeah.
unprofessional. But with any artists developing their style, their audience, and growing as a business in a sense, because you are a business, in making sure that the investment that you were given by the record company or the promotion company, that you can pay it off over the years to come. So those venues like the ones you've worked in are really good for young people to really get to know other promoters. Like you said, SJM, Live Nation, and they're the biggest on the planet. You probably would never have met them unless you were working in a small venue like that. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think they have promoters. Obviously, they do it on different levels and stuff. But yeah, no, it's important to support the small venues, and I think support for the artists to start at that level and work their way up, and it's also then from like our side working it. I think obviously it's amazing if you and you're very lucky if you can get your first job in a big stadium or a big arena, but working in the smaller ones and having an oversee of all the different things and how it's working is really important, because then when you'll understand it better when you get into those bigger spaces and you understand the bigger picture and how things work. Because I said it shaped how I thought, and it shaped how I now then can manage things, because I've experienced everything in different areas rather than just having one experience.
Yeah, and your trajectory to some degree was similar to mine. I started with a lot of small venues, theatre venues, like clubs and so forth, before I started managing major festivals and events, 60, 70, 80, 90,000. And so the skills that you learn and the challenges that you have are really sort of the cornerstone of how you progress. So I'd like to ask you, when you worked at Stylus in Leeds, name us some of the biggest operational challenges that you faced that you can remember or reflect on.
Again, I think it's quite specific to the venue, just because it's not a traditional. There's a set foyer for your venue. It's an open space, so like when the main door down in Stylus is basically in a sort of large corridor area where there's a co-op and there's other little food outlets around the area, and it's open to the public and all the students. So you find the balance between the people who are attending the event and the people who are just free to be in that area because they can do so. It really highlighted to me, and I really pushed on sort of the security side of things. It wasn't at that time in that venue, that wasn't my responsibility because of how the venue worked. But I remember pushing on areas and thinking, no, this isn't secure in this bit. There's a back staircase down to this other area where, anyone could go around that bit. And I had to put things in place to sort of catch those bits, so then it was secure for the event and the venue from the customer side, and then in case obviously anything happened, it was what are we doing to like protect the people and protect not only our like people getting in who haven't bought a ticket, but people who may get in and want to do things of other nasty nature.
True, it's very true, and I think sometimes when I teach, I show people case studies of operational challenges around health and safety, fire precaution, and the risks that you have, and those risks can be a multitude, and some of them are quite crazy because you never think that people will actually undertake such ridiculous things when they're in a venue, be it criminally or just pure stupidity. And I suppose from your point of view, working in that area, you've got to try to prevent those things, and you have to anticipate. So did you find yourself really looking at anticipating people's behavior and how to curb those behavior?
You do. You've got to be like, I always used to stand, there's like next to the stage, there's like a little bit to get round onto it. And you can see like the whole room from there. And I used to stand there and just constantly like watching everybody and thinking, because it's for their safety, risk testing, thinking, oh God, if another person goes down into that pit area, then it's gonna be like it's already chocker, it's gonna make worse. And then discussing, and then you discuss with like the duty manager who was on the security, be like, right, we need to put some staff to stop people going down into the pit because it's not going to be safe. But it's like stairs down into the main pit area. So there's only like then 4 staircases out, which, if anyone needs to rush to get out of there, it's not going to happen very quickly. So you have to be on top of that. And yeah, and watching people's behaviors, like thinking they look like they want to climb up there, like, and when they're eyeing it up, and you're always on the lookout. You're always, trying to catch and anticipate something before it happens to avoid injury and avoid like the event being at risk.
And that's it. I suppose when you put together a risk assessment, you can look at some of the major risk and the most prominent risk, but you can't look at every single risk because you can't always anticipate exactly what everyone does. But like you said, you have to be vigilant. And most people may think I can write a comprehensive risk assessment, and then I leave it in a folder. But what I don't do is then make it active, and I become the sort of purveyor of all of those potential risks while the event, pre-event, during the event, and after the event.
Yeah, you've got to implement it, and you've got to think, you're not being a party pooper. You just want everyone to be happy and safe and leave the venue safely. And if someone's annoyed at you because you're stopping them from sitting up on a ledge that they shouldn't be sat up on, all right, well, I can't see, I want to do this, I want to do that. Well, it's tough because if you fall, the event stops and you'll be heading off to the hospital. So like, let's think about everyone else but you. And you've got to bring people down to earth a little bit sometimes. But you can stand here and you can enjoy yourself. You want people to have a good time. That's why, we want to have a good time. We want the customers to have a good time. But for me, as soon as people start crossing the line, whether they're threatening their own life or the health, or they're threatening other people's life or injury, then I'm like, that's when the fun stops.
Okay.
So yes. That's a couple of difficult conversations with artists and customers. It's not just the public, the artists who want to come in and climb up the riggings and jump up a balcony, which I've had. In the Refec, we had an American, like, I'll call them American rock band that came, and in the Refec, it's a big long room, but then there's like a balcony edge that goes round, and we don't have customers up there apart from accessible customers because it's not
like a mezzanine area.
Yeah, like a mezzanine level, which sort of like was a horseshoe shape around the room. And up there we never let public up on the sides. It was like there was lights and equipment. So there's only accessible customers up at the back, and then some like of the artist guests used to sat on the first edge. And one of the touring party decided to go along and jump off the balcony down onto the crowd. And you're just like,
what distance of a fall is that?
It's fun, but it won't be fun when you break someone's neck, will it? And they were annoyed at us, and we were like, no, you can't do that. So we really kicked off at them at that. It was bad. Luckily no one was hurt, but yeah, it's just when it comes to having that conversation with the rep, like before a show starts, you have a full like security, like a show stop chat about what we can allow, what we can't allow. And whenever we've got standing show, whether it was there or whether in our current job, I just say no one's stage diving. Like, you can get down, you can go and you can crowd surf, fine, but you're not jumping from there to there, because again, like, you'll break a collarbone, you'll break a neck, like you're jumping potentially on people who aren't expecting it, and that's when people get hurt. And
exactly, and I think sometimes, like you said, when you're trying to curb people's behavior without diluting the entertainment, or what you're trying to also safeguard other people, but also safeguard just your career.
Yeah, because, and it's the venue as well. It's on the venue and it's on you, and you should have stopped it. They should have done it, but you'll also be investigated to be like, what did you do to make sure this was done? And that's why you've got to have the paperwork, the things to back yourself up to say that no, I told them that they couldn't do this.
So fortunately, in your career so far, you've never had an investigation by the health and safety executive.
No, I haven't. No. People both have done what they're told and no one's been hurt. So touch wood that continues to be the case.
Yes, absolutely. I second that. So you mentioned earlier on that you are part of the commercial side of the business in Stylus. And even though your student union is part of the university, it's a separate commercial entity. Am I right in saying?
Yeah, it's a charity.
So you have to make it financially viable every year. So how do you balance that, or do you have any influence in that at all, in making sure that this venue is profitable, even though it is primarily a student venue, but open to the public for other events?
Um, when I was there, I wasn't fully in control of the
Mhm,
finance side and balancing the books when it came to putting on the gigs.
mhm,
Um, I was involved, in small elements of areas, but I wasn't in control because I wasn't like the event manager who was above me,
mhm.
do that sort of thing. I ran with the ideas and did it. I do more of that in my current job now rather than I did
Which
in
we'll get,
my
which we'll
job.
get to later
Yeah.
on. Yes. So you weren't part of the evaluating or selecting the artists and booking the artists. They never brought into any of those meetings to give you an
Well,
overview of why they're booking such and such.
so I managed the diary. So people would
Hmm.
promoters would contact me and ask what dates were free and bits like that. But because the venue was quite sought after in terms of space, then we never had to really advertise the space. It was a lot of the diary got filled just by inquiries rather than us going out to it. So
Yeah.
whenever an inquiry would come in, and they'd hold the dates, they'd confirm the dates, and we'd check who the artist was, and I'd look into it to make sure it was nothing so overly controversial or bits like that, because I had to take into account the fact that we were in a student union, and you couldn't have somebody who was um, completely controversial in whatever way that was. So we did look into that, but never really had too many issues with that. But so I used to plan it and make sure things worked and make sure we had the venue and the diary was okay. But yeah, I never really had to plan in that sense because it came to us really.
So the promoter gets handed down to you from the commercial side, and they tell you now you have to liaise with that person. So how would you manage that relationship with the local or national promoters, or even international promoters, let's say, to make that partnership and that event successful? Was that a tricky situation, or did you have a formula that you worked to?
Sometimes, I mean, when I worked with them more often, because it was the same person emailing you over and over again, so you work up a bit of rapport with them over email, especially like the national ones where you don't see them. But then there's a couple of like local Leeds promoters who they sometimes they'd be the promoter and they'd be the person then who would be there on the nights. So you'd work on a relationship with them, and sometimes it's difficult because they're wanting to do what's best for them, what's best for the artist, and obviously pushing the venue to maybe, relieve costs somewhere or not want something to be recharged and things like that. But then you've then got to protect the venue side and things and think, well, we need to recharge this, we need to make sure our costs are covered at the same time. So that's the sort of the main area where I was involved in balancing the costs of being like, no, well, you have to pay for this if you want it, sort of thing, rather than so sometimes not everyone was happy, but they yeah, they're the ones who have the balancing act of thinking, oh well, the artist wants this and we want them to pay for that, and just arguing who's paying for what at the end of the day.
Okay. So you spent, is it 3 years you said there?
Yeah, I was there for about 3 years, but I was
Mhm.
furloughed for 18 months during that time. So technically
Right.
it was like half and half. So it was a
Yeah.
bit crazy because I joined the company there in November 2019, and obviously I only worked there for what, 3, 4 months until everything went into lockdown.
Yeah.
So I'd only just got to a point where I was grasping what we were doing and things, and
Mhm.
it was getting to know everything. And then we came back in the September 2021, I think it would have been,
Mhm.
because over a year later. Um, and everything had been rescheduled and
Yeah.
everything was happening, and it was crazy coming back because not only did I have to still learn
Was
the
it
job,
busy?
yeah,
Was
it like went the first, I think it was September, and those months are busy anyway in venues.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but it was chocker. And I think I came back, and because obviously everybody knew me from previously, they obviously just felt like I knew what I was doing. And I did
Mhm.
to a certain extent, but I was still learning the job because I'd only been in it
Mhm.
technically 4 months from
Yes.
the point of being furloughed. And yeah, went back into like 18 shows over the month, which is a lot, I think, for many
Yes.
any venues anyway. And then I think the first show that I did, it was Slam Dunk, which is a promoter in Leeds. They do Slam Dunk Festival, and the whole student union would be like the after party for the festival. So we could expect
Wow.
up to 3,000 people.
Mhm.
And when we came back, I remember that show being, it was horrendous at the start, because when we got there, because we first had a problem with security, because security companies had obviously, everyone at all them had been furloughed and not been having work. They didn't have as many staff. And we were meant
Mhm.
to have like 24 staff or something to cover the whole building at like, I think, because it wasn't starting until later, so that wasn't until like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I think the
Mhm.
doors were like a half past 10 or something. And we had like 4 members of staff at 10 o'clock because they'd all been double booked somewhere else to finish at 10.
Oh.
So then when I worked with the team, and we managed to like slowly open room by room, so we knew what we were covered. And luckily that
Mhm.
sort of felt well with the people arriving, that we didn't have to stop ingress.
Mhm.
Because obviously people filtering in, and then security filtering in, and then slowly we'd reopen. There was like 4 different spaces basically in the building. So we managed, and we're getting it done, and people were coming in, and obviously at the point we were still having to do COVID, well, that was like COVID checks and stuff like this,
Mhm.
and they had to have your COVID certificate, whatever it was, and your ticket. So we're
Yeah.
doing all this and getting everybody in, and we had about 1,000 people in, and then someone pulled the fire alarm, and we had to
As they
evacuate
as as
everybody.
they do.
And they had to evacuate everybody, and so I had 1,000 people who had already come in. There's another like God knows how many people waiting to come in. And then we were like trying to reopen. It wasn't a fire. We had to when we were looking to reopen the building, and it was
Mhm.
just like first show back. I was like, oh my God. But
The baptism of fire.
literally,
And
yeah, it was crazy. But we did it, and it was fine. And we went to the rest of the month and found the right balance. But yeah, sometimes you just got to jump in the deep end and go for it. Um,
so my next question is, after the 3 year stint, and what was the really formative part of your career, where did you go after that? What did you do after that? And,
so that's the job after that is the one that I'm in now. Um,
mhm.
so because I'd been there at the student union, and I got to a point where I felt like I could do the job with my eyes closed, because obviously
Mhm.
I'd done it for so long, and it was the same thing churning over and over again. And I wanted more. I wanted to be involved more. I wanted more responsibility. I wanted to step up.
Mhm.
And the position that I was in, there wasn't room then to progress, because people above me weren't going anywhere. Um, and then I wanted to go down the route of like getting more training to understand more things, and the company just weren't in a position to offer me that. So that's when I
Mhm.
started to think, all right, I need to move on now. I need to, as much as I loved working there, loved my team, I need to like take the next step in my career. So I applied, and initially applied at the Leeds Arena because they had a job opening. Didn't get that, but then the operations manager who was there at the time, um, she she said, oh, I was a really strong candidate, and that she was going to put me forward for other things that would come up within what was ASM at the time, which is now Legends Global, which was really nice. And then I think it was a couple months later when the job at York came up, and she emailed me and let me know and said, oh, I think you'd be really good. I think you should apply. So that's when then I applied for the senior event manager at York Barbican, and obviously got the role, and done that since.
Now, I'm going to be a bit controversial here, because when we say to young people about networking and why you should network, and sometimes the next job that you get may be based on the impression you've made with someone else. Now, you clearly made an impression when you applied for a job that you didn't get, and that person then recommended you for another job coming up, and may have put a good word in for you. And I'm not saying that on in any way that it takes away from your ability to do the job, but a lot of people have to realize that how you present yourself to people, even if you don't get the job, but how you impact on other people, and how therefore they can then assist you later on in your career. and never see that, or you may come back round years later and find yourself working with them again. So at what point did you notice the importance of the connection between you and others and networking, and how vital that was for moving your career forward? Like you said, you wanted a better challenge, a bigger challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I think initially, when we were at university, I think
Mhm,
the lecture on the course, because everyone who's there pretty much all worked in the industry as well. They sort of drilled into us at that time how important it is to network and take the chances that you can get. Um, because like I said, you build up a relationship with someone that you might work with just for a day, and then they'll need someone the week after or a month after, and they think, oh, like Maisie was good. Like I'll text her. And as long as you're quite like you can be personable, you can be you can work well with people and have a normal conversation and just be nice. I think sometimes that can go a long way compared to thinking, oh, I know what I'm doing, I'm really good at that, so why shouldn't
mhm,
they? But if you didn't build up that potential rapport with somebody, didn't, as little things like offer to fill up their water bottle when you went to fill it up, or ask what they were, just normal human conversations that you have, they might not think about you twice because you might have done a good job, but they probably remember the person who did a rubbish job over you sometimes. It's how the
yes.
world works, because you put your head down and you got on, which is great, and you should do that. But I think it's being trying to be as impactful as you can to be memorable.
Mhm.
Um, in that sense, it's sometimes doing the jobs like, making the cups of tea one year, pay your dues at the beginning, because we've all done it. I don't even drink tea and I had to make them. So,
I know you feel. Yes. Yeah, I hark back to the times that, like you said, you sometimes you don't realize that you're making an impact, and sometimes you think to yourself, you have to make an impact because you know how tight, as big as the industry is, and it is big and it is global. There are a
mm,
lot of people who know a lot of people, and when you start speaking to people and you say, oh, do you know such and such, and they say, yeah, and you're thinking, right, okay, I hope I made a good impact on that person,
yeah,
because they might go and contact them now to find
yeah,
out about me. and
yeah.
and
But it's using your brain, it's using your initiative, like if you're, it's asking questions, and some people might not receive it well, and some people might, like, if you notice something, like let's you're doing like a little festival office admin job, but you pick up on something that you think, oh, I'm not sure if that's going to be negative impact in 2 days, because we're running out of paper, or like just little things that when it come to it would be a bit more of a disaster, but you notice it and you just flag it, think, oh, I noticed that. Is this meant to be like that? And you can do it sort of in a question way. And I said some people will appreciate it, and that's their prerogative, because they're not always going to work with someone who's nice, but someone will think, oh, you switched on, you know what you're doing, like, um, and I always feel like it's the little things that then build up to everything else.
Okay, so you're in your new position, you got your new email address, you got your name above your door. Yes. You got your high vis on, I suppose, and you're trying to navigate yourself around this big venue. Tell us about the venue first, for people who don't know the venue, this in York. Give us some background about the venue before you talk about your role in the venue.
Yeah, so it's actually been open and running for like over 30 years. Initially started out as a like a community sort of activity centre place, because there used to be a swimming pool next door which was connected, and there was tennis courts and crashes and restaurants and things like that. So it started out like that, and then I don't know the exact dates, and I should do, but let's say, 10 or so years ago, it was closed and it was refurbished to become a music venue. And I think it was taken over then by ASM a few years after that. Um, and it's been built up. So over the last 3 or 4 years, that's when it's really taken off. It's really increased its diary. It didn't used to be as busy as it was. It used to have the odd like tribute act and little shows here or there, but
Mhm.
now we're running over 200 events a year, in a tiny little, 1,400 seated venue. We could do standing as well. It takes us over 2,000 cap if we go in standing. But we get a lot through there, and it's up and coming in other ways. You know, we're trying to get bigger and better people in, and
Mhm.
but yeah, because we currently can't fit any more in, but we can improve the quality of it. Um,
Right.
but yeah, it's a good community that we've got going on, and the venue is getting bigger and better every year.
Okay. So now tell us what your role that you were hired by the company who now owns this venue. Are they a UK company and an American
Um,
company?
it's an American company, so
Hmm.
originally it was ASM Global, who I
Hmm.
was initially hired by, and then it's literally a few weeks ago that it's been made public that they joined companies with a company called Legends, so they merged and it's Legends Global now. Legends was more from the like hospitality sort of side of the business, and then ASM was more from like operational sort of bits. But international, it's an American company, but they own venues across America, across the UK, across Europe. Um, so it's massive place to be a part of, and they're a really good company to work for. They really put back into their staff, the training that we get, and um, the things that they put into the venues and what they want to do with us is really good.
So what's your role now within
Oh yeah,
this global company?
yeah. So I'm the senior event manager, and I manage two event managers, and then I oversee the management of all our casual staff that we have. So we have what's sometimes a little bit different to other music venues is we have our own internal stewards. We call them hosts, but they're technically stewards. Whereas at the big arenas and other places, they have a security provider who would provide the stewards. But we have our own staff, so we manage them, and it works really well because they're a team of like local people who we really reliable and really dedicated and love the venue and go above and beyond all the time. And we couldn't run the venue without them. And we really try to show them how much that we appreciate them because the doors wouldn't open if they weren't there. Um,
So how many casual staff overall or full-time staff do you manage now in your
two
role as senior?
permanent, yeah, two permanent staff, and then I think it's about 60 casual staff.
Mhm.
All like it's like a 0 hour contract that it's run through, which obviously works for us in terms of like the how things work over the course of the year, you know, the quiet periods and busy periods, but it works for them because a lot of the vast majority of my staff are like semi-retired, retired sort of age, or people who are stay-at-home parents and also just want a bit of extra money here or there, or it's students who come and they just like, you know, to work the odd evening and things. So um, they really enjoy the fact that it's flexible too, which is good.
Right. So I'd like to come on later on about if you've done any management training, because now you're managing past the job, previous to the previous job you had at Stylus, where you were basically just taking on the role of sort of delivering the events.
Mm.
But I'll come back to that management later on because I know you've done quite a number of different courses over the time since you left university, which is excellent to hear. But there's one question I want to focus on because now you in this senior role and you wanted to push on and, like you said, get more responsibility, which is good. So do you find yourself now booking the artists like because obviously in the previous role that you had, you said you didn't do that. So are you going out there booking and working with the promoters from that point of view?
No, that's because of the size of the company, that's a um centrally run. So we have like a central booking team for Legends, who book in into our diary, and then our general manager has a bit of a say over it as well. But I don't book the artists in, I just see who's coming and plan accordingly to plan the events.
Right. So even though you're managing now, could you give us an insight on your management styles? Because there are theoretical management styles, and I know from years ago, I taught you three distinctive ones, which I'm not going to go into because this is not a lecture. But how do you find managing people and the best way to manage them, generally speaking? I know people should be managed differently, but when you're managing teams, how do you get them to work to be effective and successful in their jobs?
Um, I like to put the confidence in them that they can do the job that they're hired to do, because that's what we expect them to do. I like to, give them that freedom to, to do their job. I don't know how else to say it. I obviously keep an eye on things because I have to, in terms of like costings and how they're doing things, and they'll run stuff by me. But I like
okay, let me ask you a question. So do you micromanage them, or do you, like you said, you allow people to do their job?
I don't think I do. You can say that everyone might do to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I don't think I do, because when their role is to advance the show, work the show, and make sure the admin's done. That's their main core, and then they do some other things around that. And some of their shows, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just like, you're doing it. So we're like, oh, why? What's going on with this one? I'm like, I don't know. It's not mine. They're doing it, and I'll keep an eye on, because I have to, in the sense that like I'll be like, oh, how's that one going, and I'll check in with them and make sure that they don't have any questions, or sometimes you might need to adjust something like the staffing levels or how we're doing things or something like that. And they're happy to come speak to me, and they know that I need to know and have approval over things sometimes. But I don't think I do. I have asked them and been like, do you feel like I micromanage you? And they said that they don't. So that's good. But but I have confidence in my team, so I don't have to be like that. I feel like if someone hadn't got those strengths, then you do have to oversee them a bit more and make sure they are doing it right, and obviously monitor that. But I'm luckily not in that position, so I don't have to as much.
Right. So the fact that you've done some training courses, which I'd like you to sort of explain to our listeners as to why you've done them, do you instill upon the people that you manage to take on training courses as well?
Yes, they've done the same courses, pretty much the same courses that I've done. It's you under Legends, you have to sort of have them as part of doing your role, so then you're qualified to do your role essentially. So they've all done.
Those courses are.
So since I've started there, I've got my personal license, I've got my SAA door license, my SAA CCTV license, I've done mental health first aid training, I've got my FREC 3 medical training, and I've done all like the security ones, like the ACT, which are free to do anyway. So I've done the ACTs and bits like that, and then I think that's it. So a couple of big ones in there, which is good, but it feeds into my job, and it gives me the knowledge and the confidence in the decisions that I need to make.
So tell me, of all the different ones that you've done, which one do you feel, from an operational point of view, are most poignant in the job that you do now as a senior event manager?
I think the most poignant one is my SIA door license, so my security license. We didn't have it initially when I first started, and then I think I did it after a couple of months when we got the course set in. But I just felt like, because how it runs in the venue is, when there's a show night on, the event manager turns into the duty manager, so we're in charge of everything that goes on in that building. Everyone reports into us as the captain of the ship, we like to call it. You're steering everything. And you have contractors in, so security and medical contractors, and also the promoter and stuff. And also the key part of running the event is the audience coming in and the security of it. That's one of our key focuses, to make sure that everyone's safe. And just some things how it happened here or there, and because I didn't know what was right or wrong in terms of security side of things, and how they were like maybe handling like an ejection or searching somebody, or what they thought their terms were. I didn't feel like then I could manage them, and because they're like, oh no, I know that's wrong, so you shouldn't do it like that. So I had ownership over it. And then after doing the door license, then you can stand there and think, oh, I've done the same course as you. I know that what you're doing is wrong, and you need to do it like this. And then you're like, it's more things to be aware of, more things to pick up, to think, to make sure that the audience is safe and the venue's safe. That's my main focus. So I think that's been the best one that I've done.
Okay. So this leadership role that you have, senior event manager, because you're working for a global organization, as you said, now that just recently bought you out, called Legends. So in terms of responsibility and accountability, How do you handle that and that level of responsibility working with such a
Um,
big organization?
yeah, handle it, I think, as calmly as I can. In the sense that, I do have a lot of responsibility across my
Mhm.
department and across the venue. Um, I don't know how to word it really, because yeah, I don't know how to
So,
word it.
so in that role, then, do you coordinate with other teams across the business, such as the finance or any other
Yeah,
department, in terms of what you do?
yeah.
Yeah, and why is that necessary for you to do your job, to coordinate with all those other departments?
So in the events department, we are sort of the central team in terms of pulling everything together. So it's security, it's working with the F&B department, with the box office, and then the finance, because you'd have to know your event inside and out. Right from, making sure the staffing levels are correct, to make sure the event's going to run smoothly and safely, to running it on the night and coordinating within departments to make, okay, the promoter said that there's some sightline issues, so you need to liaise with the box office team and the promoter to make sure that's sorted out.
Mhm.
And then across all of it, then with terms of the staffing levels, it's keeping an eye on the costs and making sure that it is going to be profitable at the end of the day. Like, otherwise, why are we why are we doing it? Um, so yeah, and I, as in my role, because I'm a senior event manager, I have to make sure my event manager are doing that for their events as well. And then at the end of the month, it's tying it all together, making sure all the pennies add up, and you've not overspent, or you've bits like that.
So you have a budget, would you say, to work from?
Yeah, so I'm responsible for doing our budget forecast for my
Mhm.
department for the year. So we submitted that for next year a couple of weeks ago. So I got to predict for the entire year what we're going to spend and everything. Which is not
So,
my favorite thing to do.
so yeah, finance is, from a lot of people's point of view, it's not always their strong point. But looking back, like you said, over a year, did you say you had 200 different performances? Is
Yeah,
that
over 200 events.
right? So looking forward, then, what's your prediction and what's your potential spend to make sure that you can bring in those, or work to make sure that they are successful, particularly through the box office?
Um, the different departments are responsible, so like the box office and marketing are responsible for the sales and the
Hmm.
advertisement of it, and actually bringing people in, so we actually have people to
Hmm.
have an evening. But in terms of my responsibility of it, it's always finding the balance of working with the other teams, think, okay, what are the sales for this event? Is it sold out? If it's sold out, we know what we need in terms of our, like, how many security
Hmm.
we need, how many staff we need on, how many hours they're going to be working. Or if it's not, or if it's a venue, because we have like a balcony level, and sometimes we close that off depending on the size of the event. And if
Yeah.
we do that, it means you can reduce it and save on those costs, because you're not going to make as much money if it's not sold over that level. So it's pulling and reining those in when you need to find the right balance. Um, and then yeah, it's being clever about what you're recharging. Um,
Hmm.
because and understanding, yes, it might cost you, it costs a lot more than this, but like, if you need to hire for a conference, you need to hire some chairs in, and it's going to cost you £500 to just hire them in. It's thinking, okay, I'm not going to recharge that direct number back because I need to pay for the staff to set them up. And it's factoring in all the elements to make sure that you're covering everything, and well, at the very least breaking even, which obviously is the bare minimum, but obviously
Yeah.
you want to be making your event profitable, otherwise then you're not running a good business.
True. So would you say that your venue is a profitable venue
Yeah,
overall?
we are one of the in within Legends. We're
Mhm.
doing very well for the size of our venue, to say that we're in the same company as like Manchester Arena and the Wembley Arena, and like Leeds, and there's the one up in Aberdeen and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, they're all great venues, and they're all doing really well, but we um this for the size of our venue, the amount of events that we do, we're, I think, up there with the making more profit than some of the bigger spaces, because we have because of the size of venue, we have lower outgoings compared to our incomings, just with how it
Right.
sits. But yeah, we're
Okay.
sitting well within that. So which is really good because we work really hard to make sure that we do well.
So there's other venues which you mentioned. They fall under the umbrella of Legends. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
correct? Right. Okay. So I'll come to that later on because I just want to ask you if you've got other aspirations to take on another role or maybe move into another bigger venue. But before we go into that part of it, I know that, like you said, and like most people, we worked through the pandemic, or some people were furloughed through the pandemic. And when you came back, you said it was really busy and extremely busy. But there are certain data points that allude to the fact that the industry didn't really pick up at this point to where it left off before the pandemic hit. And a lot of venues, like music venues in particular, smaller ones, have closed down. Have you noticed that at all? Are you aware of that? And has it affected your venue in any way?
Um, I noticed it when I came back into Leeds when I worked there.
Mm-hmm.
I think not only because people obviously were scared of going out, scared of, they'd bought tickets and
Mm-hmm.
because it'd been rescheduled, they didn't know they could get it refunded. And so you didn't know what the numbers were. So we always expected a good like 30-40% drop off compared to what
Mm-hmm.
tickets were sold. So that struggles because a lot of venues, they don't actually make that much money off the actual ticket sales. They make the money off the bar spend and what people, because that's their money to keep essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously less people you're having, less drinks being bought, and then obviously with inflation, everything going up in cost, the drinks going up in cost, and everyone always complains about when you go into the arenas and the music venues how expensive the drinks are. It's because the venue's expensive to run, and they need to gain some money back somewhere and pay for the staff because you're not thinking, oh, I'm paying for the pint. You're paying for the staff member, you're paying for electricity, you're paying for the building to be open. It's all those sides of it. It's
So
people feel like it's
operational costs.
yeah,
Sorry. So operational costs have definitely gone up, as we've seen with
yeah.
most, if not all, businesses. And obviously, you transfer those onto the customers in some way, spread it across the customer base to make sure your venue remains profitable. So, what would you say, from your point of view, one of the biggest challenges facing venue managers in today's market?
I think it's just getting people to come in the first place. It's
Mhm.
it's links. It's making. I think now people they it's more they get so much on the trends of this. I want to go see this person. Like so, if you're big up in the arenas and you're a Lewis Capaldi, you're all like the big artists who
Mhm.
have gone from in the last not even 5 years, in the last like 2, 3, 4 years, which is not that long a time. They've gone from nobody knowing them to they're being globally known, and they've jumped the step between the little acoustic pub that they might have played into an arena. Most of them have missed out these sort of smaller venues, and I think that's difficult because of like the media these days and how things go. If someone goes viral on TikTok, it's they go from 0 to 1 million in like a week, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden they're massively popular, and it's not then they know they can go and skip those bits, so it's hard to get people to stay at the level at like the medium level where it's 1,000, 2,000 sort of cap venues, to
Mhm.
come to those and spend the money because it's expensive for the tickets. And I think and I get that it seems expensive. When I go to concerts, I think, oh God, it's gonna be £90 for a ticket. But then I think on the other side and think, oh yeah, but that's not even covering one person's day rate to actually work the event, when if they're freelancing or something. And or I know how much like production costs, and it's thousands of pounds. And um yeah, I think
Artist fees.
yeah, but yeah, I think it's just the venues do so much to try and get people to come. They try to put deals on, they try and make it more enticing, try about people, upgrading their evening, making something a bit more special, making it unique. You do all things and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, you just can't. I know you can't always entice people to be there because I think it just comes down to everyone's living state and they don't have that spare money to spend on a ticket because it's not just the ticket, it's a taxi there and back, it's the drinks, it's the
Hmm.
actually being there at the event, which also then makes it expensive. You can easily be spending £200-300, stay in a hotel, it's more than that. Um,
Exactly.
it's a whole event, it's a whole weekend. Um, but I think then going into smaller local venues probably then would be easier for people. And I think one of the reasons why York does well is we're a sort of medium venue between, and we do get big names. We get big comedians come, and they come to our venue to do like little warm up gigs before they go out on arena tour. So you can
Hmm.
see the Jimmy Carls and the Ricky Gervais and but those sort of people who are big comedians come to a small intimate venue, um, and you're not paying as much as you would pay at arena. So.
Okay. So what would you say are the emerging trends from where you're sat in the live entertainment, and that probably you're most excited about?
Trends as in like
Well, it could be based on some of the things that you've mentioned previously. From a venue perspective, and keeping your venue open and keeping your venue profitable and keeping your audience coming back. Is there anything that you look out there and think, oh, this is where the venue needs to be focusing its energy on? These are the new artists. These are the new type of performances. Is there anything that you feel that the venue should be looking at from a Legends global organization point of view, or is there anything particular that you're excited about in terms of what you're seeing out there that you would like to have at your venue?
um probably in some ways I
Mhm.
think it's just more about making the customer experience memorable and like I said and unique, and it is one
Mhm.
of Legends like core values. Like when companies do they think of three,
Mhm.
4 or 5 terms that they want to do for their like vision for the next however many years.
Mhm.
And one of Legends is that about the customer experience. So we're really looking at what we're doing now and then what we're then doing to be able to elevate people's experiences. And
Mhm.
I know one of the things that our venue is looking at doing is introducing different security elements. So currently, I mean, everybody gets searched coming into the venue because you have to as part of
Mhm.
our terms and conditions. But we're going to be into I can't remember what it's called now, but a different sort of system. So it's easier to move into the venue with a bit better
Mhm.
technology. So then it's not like every individual person is, you think, oh, I'm getting strip searched just to get into here.
Mhm.
It's different technology, so you can walk through and it picks up and picks out things
Like in an
magically.
airport
Yeah,
where they do
sort
their
of like
screening.
yeah, it's sort of
Yeah.
like a screen. It's not like a mag arch. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a camera sort of system and things that you
Mhm.
walk through to, and it detects what you have on you. So if if someone did have something that they shouldn't have on them, like a weapon or glass or something like that, they shouldn't bring it in. You won't want them to bring them in. It picks up those people. Then everyone else who's coming in, they've only got the purse on them. They've only they want to just get in and
Mhm.
get to the bar and get in. Then they're not stopped as much, and then it just makes their experience better coming
Yes.
into the venue more smoother. And we especially find it hard at our venue because we're a small venue and some people still see us as a theatre sort of side of
Mhm.
things. They they don't expect to come and have to have their bag checked and to go through a mag arch and be wanded.
Yes.
They think, oh well, why do you think I'm a terrorist or something like that? It's like, well, we don't, but
Yes.
everyone does this, so then we know that everyone in our building is safe.
It's safe.
Um
Exactly.
and they're going to
And,
get a wake up call when the law is going to be changing um
mhm.
very shortly, the next couple of years. So then it'll obviously become normal to them, and then you won't get as much as that
A
kickback from
pushback.
people. Yeah, and I think that
Yeah,
then
and
will help their
I
experience
think a lot
too.
of people have to understand as well, because you probably would have noticed it as well when we had the Arianda bombing at the arena in Manchester, and how security tightened up,
Yeah,
and the whole thing about the sort of security that you get in airports were then applied to some venues, not all venues, and like you said, how strict it became, and and so as you decide to make changes in the customer experience, which is absolutely essential to make sure people do keep coming back, do you find yourself going to other venues and watching what they do and seeing how they operate and
yeah,
thinking, we do better than that, or we could do better in those
yeah.
areas? Do you find yourself observing a lot?
Yeah, friends call me a loser because I don't switch off.
Yes, I used
I walk in and I look for a fire exit.
fire exit. Yes.
And or I'll be like, oh well, they didn't search my bag, or they didn't. That person didn't get one did, and I'm like judging them, or I'd see things like,
Yes.
oh, that's a really good idea. Like we should do that, and then I'll go back and I literally, I sent we're looking at getting some like water filters in our foyer area, so it's easy for people to like get free water easier rather than having to queue to the bar to get it. And there was a really cool like water fountain. I sent a picture, sent it to like work group chat, being like, "Oh, look how cool! We should get this." Yeah, you're always looking for ways to better improve yourself and using other people's ideas,
Yeah.
and seeing it. So
No, I still do it today, and I don't work in any venues. I walk into a venue and I look for the fire exit. It's just habit, and
yeah,
because you never know when you need it. That's it. And I've needed it sometimes when I've been in
yeah,
venues. So I clearly understand where you're at, and that shows a level of professionalism. I know sometimes it's hard to switch off, like you say, when you're out with your friends, and your friends look at you like, "What's wrong with her? Why is she mentally making notes about this venue?"
yeah,
Because, like you said, you take your job seriously, and you want to perform at a high standard. You want your customers to keep coming back, because, as you know, and as we said earlier on, it's a challenging industry. And after the pandemic, things have changed, and the cost of living crisis, things have changed, and people make decisions now where they want to spend their money more so than they ever did before. So, so the first point of contact for most people is security, and if they get a negative response in that first point of contact to the venue, that can shape their whole
yeah,
experience. Mhm.
yeah. It can, you know, we strive to make sure that our security are putting on a good face and being welcoming, and then when they get to our staff at the desk, at the doors to get their ticket scanned, and then they're being welcomed and greeted and helped, because they need to download an app to get their ticket, and and then they don't have an app or they don't have a smartphone, and these sort of things, challenges that you face, but we we do what we can to be accommodating for everybody. So then they have a great time because we want them to have a good time, and we're lucky that we do get a lot of good feedback through our customer channels. So we know that we're doing a good thing somewhere or another. I'll see.
I'd like to touch on, like you said, what's emerging within the live music industry, and you mentioned it briefly, the changes that's coming very soon in the law,
Yeah.
Martin's Law. So for those people who may have heard of it, I'm not quite sure how it's going to resonate within the industry. Could you give an overview of that for people who are looking to come into this industry?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, well, so Manchester Arena is a part of the company that I work for, and was so when the Manchester Arena attack happened. And following that, they were then heavily involved in the inquiry, obviously, and then so what came out of that was there's a woman called Fegan Murray, and her son unfortunately passed away at Manchester Arena. And during the inquiry, she realized that there's no legal obligation for any like venue, large space to put security in place to protect the public. Like none at all. So like arenas, no, they don't have to have anything. They could just have ticket scanners on the door, and there's nothing to stop anybody doing anything. And she didn't agree with that, and I don't agree with that. I never thought I thought it was a legal obligation. I thought it was like, the practice that you had to put in place, like you would for health and safety reasons to protect people. But it just wasn't the case. So she went back to went to university and got a master's in counterterrorism, and has since got a boatload of other qualifications and things. And she's been pushing this through government to put this into law, that it's like it's called Martin's Law. It was going to be called the Protect Duty, but then they decided to keep calling it Martin's Law, to honour him and what happened. Um, but yeah, anyone who's looking to get into events in any element, any side of it, whether it's production, event management, everyone should, I mean, any member of the public should be aware of it and aware of what's going to happen, and clear themselves up on it, because it's basically going to be that the full like whatever it's going to be is currently being worked on. So I've only heard elements that are currently being discussed and being decided. And I think it's next April is when it's actually going to be the official information is going to be decided and where everyone's going to land. So basically, currently as it stands, they're saying that any venue with over 200 people in it, so that's customers and staff. It's not just the capacity is 200, no, because you could have 50 staff working. So it's the amount of people in the venue between 200 and 799. You just go under one tier, and then 800 plus would be under another tier. In the standard tier, it's the first. You don't have to do standard tier. It's not having to do loads of things. You're just making sure that you know how to lock down your venue, how to evacuate your venue, have the policies and procedures in place to make sure that you're doing things to protect yourself, your venue, and the customers that are coming. And then 800 plus, you've got to do a little bit more because the amount of people. So it's about having good CCTV, having security in place, doing bag checks, and all that sort of thing, and lots of areas and different things are going to fall under it, including like hotels and public spaces and bits like that. So yeah, everyone's going to have to be aware of it and get on board because it's going to be the law.
And that's a good point. But we also got to temper it with the fact that people may think, well, what were venues doing before? Did they not have security? Did they not have sufficient bag checks? Did they not have X amount of security? Yeah, this is it. It was yeah. So even though there's guidance, and there's a lot of guidance in the Purple Guide, and local authorities issue licenses to venues, police have more responsibility and ownership how venues are operated. But a lot of it, like you said, has been guidance. For every 100 people in a venue, you must have at least one security. But depending on the type of venue, depending on the type of audience, depending on the type of event, you can determine how many security you need. So the fact that they've going to formalize it in a piece of legislation, there's going to be a legal framework around it, and obviously severe penalties if you don't. Not saying that there weren't penalties before, because you couldn't be answerable to the health and safety executive, or it could be a criminal prosecution or civil case if you didn't look after the safety of your customers and your people who come to the event. So I think people should know that there are some legislations in place under the Licensing Act. There are police responsibilities within the Police Act, how they work with event managers, and like his counter-terrorism and so forth. But obviously the arena bomb did shake the industry up, because even though they did have door staff at the arena, so not saying that they didn't have any, they did have door staff, they did have security. Were those security sufficiently trained and understood the situation that they were in for the type of venue that they were managing? They had the last line of defense to a large degree, when people are entering and when people are leaving and when people are trying to enjoy themselves in the venue. So yeah, the teaching around this will definitely change, and the understanding for people like yourself will have to have some new onboarding. So I want to go on to before we close, your future, Maisie, because if I'm to come back and see you, but I hope I can see you again before the next 10 years, like I said, I think you're going to be an excellent guest speaker for some of my students. But in 10 years' time, where do you see your vision? Where do you see you?
I haven't decided quite yet. There's lots of areas that do spark my interest. I mean, definitely going to be staying where I am for the time being, and because our venue's got a lot of development to do and areas to improve on, just in terms of making it better in general. But like the security side of things interests me, and and when I do things like this, where it's sort of passing on, the wisdom, whatever you want to call it, that I have.
Yes.
Don't like to say it like that, but it does feel like I am passing on that wisdom, passing on that information. Do I see myself going down that direction, and working on educating maybe not just students but businesses on the changes that are going to be coming up in the next couple of years, and supporting people. I know there's a lot of progression that I could do within the company that I'm in now. They have a central team and they're opening other venues and things, and there's always opportunities there. So I'm not sure. I'm just to see where things take me and interest takes me. But
I'll tell you where I see you. I see you managing your own venue. That's where I see you in years to come.
At some point. It's a lot. I think with the higher up you get, the more
It's a lot
paperwork
to
you've
take
got to
on.
do.
Yeah, it's a lot to take on.
I definitely like being hands-on and involved in what's going on. Like I still work the shows, I still see the staff and speak like that, and I enjoy that currently. And I know the higher up I go, the less I'll
Operations
be
you'll have.
taken out of that. And I know at times I sometimes in different jobs, not speaking of like here specific where I am specifically now, you just feel like people higher up who aren't on the front line are making decisions, and it's not quite right because they don't
They
know
don't
how
know
it
how it
is because
impacts.
they don't do it. And but maybe I
And
could be a
that's why you'll
different.
be a good that's why
Yeah,
you'll
it's
be a
me, but maybe that's
good
why I
manager.
definitely make a difference at that. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, people understanding what's going on. I think sort of maybe a bit of advice to students coming up is being, yes, you have to follow direction because people are educated and they've had experience, but I don't feel scared to question things and ask why. Why are we doing this like that? Why can't we do it this way? And, you know, push things back a little bit to maybe make them think twice about, okay, no, should we do it this a different way? Or if they don't agree and they push on it and then it goes wrong, then you're like, well, I told you so. A little bit, it's I've always asked questions. I think I've always put my opinion across. I'm quite opinionated like that. And I think you probably remember at uni, I probably always had my hand up being
Yes, I do remember.
and
Yes.
stuff. But you need the clarity. You need to, if you've got a niggle in your head, it's could that change the direction of something? Could that, make the event successful where it might not have been, or could it save
Mhm.
somebody's life?
Yeah. And I've got to say, and this is why I remember you, like I said, because as a lecturer, you do remember the people who challenge you, people who ask questions, people who want to know more, and then you can see where they're taking that information and how they're going to disseminate that information later on. So that's why I said to you when we had our pre meeting, it was I remember you in your final year because you asked so many questions. And a lecturer's point of view, that's what you want. You want people to ask you questions. A lot of people won't ask questions and they have them sitting in their head and they'll walk out the room with unanswered questions. And as much as you tell them, don't leave the room with unanswered questions, they leave the room with unanswered questions. But I saw you as one of those students who never did. And even if you got your questions answered, you would come back and have more questions. So yes, it's
Yeah.
from an educator's point of view, it's the type of students we want because we know that you're going to take that into the industry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're challenging something, you're asking
Hmm.
why, and it's showing that you either want to understand it better or didn't understand it and need that clarification. And I always say to all of my staff, God, I'd rather have um you know 10, 20, 30 questions about something that I can reassure you on and make sure you're confident in doing a job, over you not asking and then you're doing something that you shouldn't have done or didn't do something and something goes wrong and it's like, oh, I didn't want to ask. It's like, well,
Yeah.
ask, because like I said, it could be extremely impactful on the venue running, or like again, it's somebody's life it could impact,
Mhm.
um, which it's quite serious to think, but it's a fun industry to be in, but it boils down to the fact that you're dealing with the public and you have to protect the people that come into your venue so that they can come back.
Right. So a penultimate question. Tell me one of the most memorable events that you remember in your 9 years since leaving uni.
Oh, good. There's been quite a few. I've enjoyed quite a lot. Um,
Mhm.
and different ones for different reasons, but you always enjoy the ones where it's like it's an artist that you might be excited about. And I've never been like, ironically, I've never been massive on like going to see things and stuff, like at concerts and things. And I've got more into that the more I've worked in the industry. But I think I'll pick out one from this year was I've I was freelancing. I worked at a festival down in Cornwall, Boardmasters, and one of my favorite artists was on one of the stages. And I was in a place where I was able to be the artist liaison manager for that stage and worked with one of my favorite bands, which was really cool. And I could stand side of stage and watch their gig. And I originally saw them years ago for the first time ever when I just worked their show at Stylus before I even
Mhm.
knew who they were, heard any of their music, and fell in love with them then. and I've gone to see them, and then it was so fun to have the chance to work with them at the festival, and then I went and saw them literally last weekend down in London at Alexandra Palace. We said that they've gone from 1,000 cap venue to, I don't know how the capacity of Alexandra Palace is, but I know it's a lot more.
Yeah.
To see them moving up and developing, but I think that was that was this year's sort of career peak for me, was doing that. So not even in my full-time job, but just getting handy, and that's the fun side of it. That's where you can sit back and enjoy it, and be excited about what you're doing, and yeah.
Okay. So my last question to you before we close: how do you maintain a work-life balance with this demanding, passionate industry that you're in?
It's hard because it is a 24/7 job. Events happen every day of the week, up and from midnight into the early hours. And I think it's really, as much as you have deadlines and stuff, because that show's happening on that day, whether you like it or not. It's knowing how to prioritize your time, and being able to realize what's urgent, what can wait, and taking that time out to have a break. Because if you're tired and and you've not slept the night before, and then you're coming into work, then you're not going to be as good as you can be. So it's just really thinking about what you're doing and making sure your time's spaced out. I'm in a position now where I do have a good work-life balance. I mean, to the end of the year, maybe not as much as I'd like, because we are very busy. But then I know I'll take time back another bit, and make sure I've rested. Rested then, but yeah, enjoy it. But yeah, don't. It's not cool to stay up until 4 a.m. and then go to work the next day because you decided to go out drinking. And I've never done that, I don't think. But I think sometimes in the industry it gets a bit of like, oh, I've done 18 hours, then I'm doing 18 hours tomorrow. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think that that's needed, but it's not great. And you've got to push back and make sure you've had that break, because not only is it not great for yourself and your own health and mental well-being, it's you then could be impactful, and you could then make a bad decision or not be as switched on because you've had 2 hours sleep. So it's important to find that right balance for yourself and make sure that you're looking after yourself.
Maisie, that really rounds it off well. Thank you very much for taking the time to
Yeah,
impart your
it's been good to
experience.
chat.
Yeah, it has, and it's good to catch up with yourself. Yeah, after 9 years,
Yeah.
and seeing how you progressed, and I'm sure that your future is going to be, yeah, really challenging, but definitely eventful as the years progress. You don't know it yet, but
Yeah,
I
we'll
can
see.
definitely see it. Yeah, I can definitely see it from what you've done in the past 9 years. So I'd like to say, from the International Institute of Live Events, this is another one of our podcasts, and it will be available and consistently available online. So I'll say goodbye from me, and on behalf of Maisie, thank you very much.
Thanks.